All right, how y'all doing? You guys good? All right, we'll pack this place out. That's exciting. You know, you guys earned it. You walked. How many of you walked here? Come on, let me see hands. Walkers. You were champions, and you guys are already ahead of the game. You know, anybody read the scriptures? You guys know what I'm talking about here? I call it the sword of the covenant. This is the sword of the covenant. That's what I refer to this as. It is the most dangerous weapon on the face of the earth. Right? You guys ever heard of this being called a sword? You know, anywhere, maybe? Hebrews chapter 4 should come to mind. We're gonna get there. Anyways, I am a fanatical nut job when it comes to enthusiasm about this book and about all kinds of things related to creation. Creation. Because our Creator loves us so much that He created the heavens, the earth, the seas, and all that is in them to show you, reveal to you who He is. And that's marvelous. Because who has ever heard of a God, an Elohim, a mighty one, who wanted to be intimate with His creation? So much so that He created rocks, water, plants, people, animals. Like, I have the most chaotic booth in the history of booths. If any of you have been there, you guys seen this? It is a smorgasbord. Children are bringing all kinds of edible and forageable plants that they're finding, and they're just dumping them on my table. Because if they come to my table, and they bring me something that I can eat out of nature, I'll let them dive into my treasure chest where all the nicest gemstones are. So, parents, adults, this is not limited to just the wee ones. It's also to you. If you go find foods, I have a book here which will help you tremendously. It's called Foraging. That's where you eat stuff that grows out of nature. I am crazy enthused about it because you know what? We need to eat every single day. Every day, super guaranteed. You don't have to, right? Y'all ever heard of fasting? Anybody fasting? Ever fasted? Like done it, not just read about it, done it, right? Like you ever consider the fact that when we were to bring sacrifices to the tabernacle and we were to offer them with these burnt offerings, they would bring the fat and set it aside to the Father. When you fast, your body does a burnt sacrifice to the Father. It burns away the fat of your body as an offering to your Father. Right? That's called warfare. This is sacrificial warfare. This is how we fight a great and massive enemy known as the dragon. Right? If you don't know, we have a literal enemy that's a dragon called the adversary, the devil, Shaitan, Hasatan, the adversary, who roams around like a roaring lion. Seeking whom he may devour, right? One time in my life, I was living on these beautiful, idyllic, glorious-looking farms. Everyone's like, oh, these are like the Facebook, beautiful YouTube pictures that just make my life look so wonderful. Well, one time, while I was on this farm in Florida, where I'm building bamboo stuff and living crazy, it was like all these children came running in to dinner time. And they're like, Nate, there's a lion! I was like, what? Their faces ash white, blood dripping out of their body. They were terrified beyond measure because they climbed over the fence and saw a giant den. And they heard, they're like, oh, there's a lion in there! And they're straight up mountain lions in Florida, if you didn't know that. They just call them the Florida Panther. I don't know why. But they're lions in Florida. So I ran back to get my spear. Does anybody have a spear in this room? Not in the room. Does anybody have a spear? This guy does right here. He's a mighty man I met in Atlanta. And yes, he literally just killed a wild, ferocious beast with his spear last week. True story. You can ask him. It's, yeah. No, we're talking spear stabbing something in the throat. He has a spear. You guys, if you don't know about it, spears are super biblical. Like, absolutely biblical. I have a staff. And all you have to do is put a knife on the end of it. It's basically a spear, right? That's cool. But I went tearing off chasing after these children to take me to the lion. I grabbed my machete and my headlamp. You guys need headlamps. Super fundamentals here. Because it's important to see the lion's den. Right? I read Daniel a few times, y'all. Like, I knew. You're going to the lion's den, y'all. You gotta meet some light. I should have brought the Bible and preached to that stinking lion. Anyways, I chose the spear. Terrible decision later. You'll find out soon. I go tearing off, chasing after, trying to find these children with this lion that's supposed to be crawling around in the jungles of Florida and my spear, and I get on a golf cart, which is a great chariot. And if you've never ridden on a golf cart while holding a spear, you will feel like a mighty man of valor. If you have not done this, I highly recommend it. You could do it with a horse, which is super biblical, but I don't have that. So, I go tearing off with the children on my way to fight the lion I've been waiting my entire life to fight. Like, every time I read about the Gibberine, the mighty men of valor, that's what Gibberine means, these mighty, courageous people who did these supernatural miracles, like you ever read 2 Samuel, David's mighty men. They were like the worthless men. They were vagabonds, losers, dropouts. It said people that were on the run. We call them criminals. Just saying, there may be some criminals in this room. I love you so much. This is a great place for you to be. Amidst the most persecuted people on the face of the earth, they were people who had lost their home. They'd lost what they'd come to know as dear and precious and safe. Like George Moss sang a song about a safe place. And this thing that each and every one of us has a desire to have a safe place. Well, I was the dude that was about to invade the safe place of the lion, right? He found himself a safe place, and I was like, son, you ain't gonna be here on our little farm. We're trying to grow strawberries and onions, you can't live here, right? So I go after this thing because I want to have that story. I'm like, since I read the story in the scriptures of a guy who climbed into a pit with a lion on a snowy day, I was like, I want to be that guy. Nobody else read that story and thought that? Nobody else? There's like 6 guys in here like, you betcha I did it! And all the rest of them are like, no, never even crossed my mind. That's okay, I'm gonna get you there. I wanted to be that guy. I sincerely just wanted to fight a lion to see what was in me, you know what I mean? Like, I always wanted that cool scar, just a couple claw marks across the face. So then everybody asks you, you're like, what happened to your face, man? They're like, lion. And then you don't say anything else, right? And they're like, dang. But then they see the claw on your neck, and they're like, oh, yeah, man. Dude's been through some stuff. You know what I mean? Everybody wants that story. If you don't, you need to want that story. That's inside you. That should be in the deepest part of your nature as a man. If not, it's because you need testosterone. And it'll come if you jump in cold water. So come to my talk on Sunday called Becoming an Immerser. No, it's just who are the immersers and why you need to jump in cold water, man, and your testosterone literally goes through the roof. It'll make you want to hunt lions. Anyways, I'm jumping in freezing cold water every day on this farm, and I am ready to hunt the lion. I go tearing off in my chariot, ready to slay this stinking monster. And I get up, and they have this giant ladder reaching over this super tall barbed wire fence. And I climb up that ladder, and I suddenly realize I have no idea what to do with the spear on the ladder. And I'm like, what do you do with the spear on the ladder? So what do? Leave the stupid spear, because I don't know what to do. And I pull out my machete. You betcha. Let's go to backup weapons. Biblical. Backup weapons. Super fundamentals. It's really nice to have the spear so you can poke somebody else before they can poke you. You know what I mean? That's super helpful. They got pokey bits, you got a bigger pokey bit. You win. Fundamentals. If you got tiny little pocket knives, you're gonna lose. You know what I mean? But I had a kukri machete, which is savage. You wanna see this at my table? I didn't bring it, so I won't swing it at any of you. Just saying. I'll get violent. Now, I climb up over this gigantic fence row, and I see the cave. And it's no stinking joke, y'all. I'm in a lion's den. And I'm like, oh, this is getting real. I've never fought a lion. I didn't know what to do. Swing this thing? You betcha. I was ready. So I turned on my headlamp because I figured I would create a photonic barrier to blind the lion, and then I would cut its head off in one fell swoop. Get that claw mark! But get that swoop, right? So I was like, I want to go wrestle the lion up and get a bad idea. I know Samson did it. Question. Was Samson buff? No. Otherwise, they wouldn't need to know where he was hiding. You just know it was the super ripped guy we all saw in the Bible stories our whole life, right? Never once did people know why he got strong. Why is Delilah like, tell me where your strength comes from, please, Samson? You wouldn't ask him if he was a yoked out broski. You're like, that dude's strong. Everybody knows it. No, he looked like Pee Wee Herman probably. Way more like that than any of you are comfortable dealing with, right? The Father loves to pour out His Spirit on people that want to be set apart, different, peculiar, funky people. He likes that. He likes unique vessels. He likes set apart things, kadosh, things that are cut off and distinctly separate from everything else. So I've got my photonic barrier blinding this lion, right? And I'm like, I'm ready for this thing. I'm ready for this thing. And then I hear this noise back over my shoulder on the other side. And I'm like, oh! It's total darkness all around me, right? And the thing is coming from over there. Little did I know that it was the farm manager messing with me. People are
screaming cat noises to try to scare the pee out of me over there. I'm all hopped up on adrenaline and I'm ready to rock, baby. They are like, what is even happening? I climb over the fence, they're like, he's over here, he's over here, he's over here. I'm like, hooray. Climb back over the fence, right? Fire manager comes over, they're like, did you hear that? I'm like, you bet I heard that. Then a real lion screams down the farm the other side. And now nobody's laughing. They're all like, oh my gosh, we heard that. And then you hear this thing running through the woods. And if you've never tried to run through a Florida jungle swamp, bad stinking idea. You're gonna wreck yourself, son. They can do it, no problem. This thing goes tearing off. So then I grab my spear again, and I'm like, let's do this thing! Running off, right? And the whole time I've got my wife filming these action shots. Anybody familiar with Nature Night here? Yeah, I know there's a couple of you in there. Okay, I have this entire series where I try to win the children's hearts for the kingdom. And I film all these ridiculous things I do. So my wife's got the action shot, she's ready, she's zoomed in on me perfectly, and I'm running with my spear, and then I roll my ankle and fall on my face. So humbling. Needless to say, I cannot fight that lion. It got away from me so fast. And if you guys ever find yourselves on that hunt for the lion, be barefoot. Do it barefoot. I wasn't barefoot then. I am now. I call these sessions that I'm doing here barefoot brawling. Because you know what? Your feet are super effective tools that this world has built a system to deprive you of using. Like, you know, there's this entire thing that happened in the garden. It all started in the garden. This is why I'm like a fanatical, crazy gardener now. Like, I realized I was raised in a world, I talk about a little bit more in this book, which is super devoid of gardening. There was not a lot of gardening going on in my house. Anybody have a lot of gardening in their life? Farming, cattle ranching, any of that? So there's some people here who did. Super set apart people, right? My version of farming my whole life was a big guy sitting in a tractor, just pushing buttons and dumping chemicals everywhere. That's all I ever saw as farming. That was the version I grew up in. I come from the big lands of the West where there's just endless fields of flattish stuff. And so they just dose everything. I never saw a version of farming that was attractive, that was exciting, that was nutrient rich. I never saw any of that. I didn't know farmers were intelligent, like wise in all these different areas of medicine and science and agronomy and marketing and business. I didn't know that there was this whole other kingdom out there that existed. I was raised with a different king. I was raised with a different mindset where men and women are taught to be self-sovereign, that we're supposed to be our own boss, that we're supposed to make our own decisions and not really submit to the hierarchy that's given in this scripture. And it crippled me. Like, it literally crippled me. I didn't know there could be this whole other way, that there's this other option, until I started hearing these people that lived differently, that were courageous, that were willing to lose the comforts of this world for a greater glory. If anybody's got a sword, who's got a sword with them? I'm going to open it up. Let's go to Hebrews 11. If you bring your sword, I'll start throwing rocks at you next time. Just telling you, come Sunday, I'll throw gemstones at you if you bring your swords. Super exciting. Literal sapphires. I'll throw sapphires at your face if you come on Sunday and you bring them. Hebrews 11. Does anybody know what the Hebrews 11? People call it this Hall of Faith, which is super ridiculous because they're trying to brainwash you to think about like the stupid sports heroes like there's something impressive. You want to talk about the real people that lived a real set-apart life and died often in horrible, horrific suffering and anguish and lived satisfying lives. They suffered for the sake of the truth. They were persecuted, and some of them were drastically and radically blessed in a way that you and I still can't comprehend. But there's a character who we talk about in the scriptures named Moshe, right? Moshe, taken from what should have been an instant execution if his mother and father had not disobeyed the commands of the king. Anybody heard about some commands going around from our kings that they should disobey so that they can protect and save your children? We're living in a society, y'all, where we should be really, really intentional to notice when it was time to say no. When it was time to say, I do not consent, and I will not compromise, right? This is how we build conviction. This is how we build belief, faith, right? This entire chapter is here to remind us, to draw to remembrance these stories that you read over and over and over and over again. If you read through the Torah portion, if you read through the whole scriptures every year, you're going to spend a lot of time hearing the same stuff over and over and over again. There's these animals, which are called cows. I know.
They chew the cud. You've all heard. Excuse me. They chew the cud. Animals that chew the cud are things that like to eat grass or leaves, broadleaf things. Cows are one example, sheep are another example. These are sheep grazing under an orchard. Your orchard should never look like death underneath. We'll get there. But they chew the cud, which means they eat the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Cows have 4 stomachs. 4. They're super hungry all the time. You think you're hungry? Welcome to cow life. 4 stomachs. And you know what happens? They don't have enzymes like we do, that like acids and stuff that breaks down their food. So when they eat, they just chew into that grass up and swallow it. Chewing it up. They're not chewing it into tiny fine parts. They're just chewing it and swallowing it. And then what happens is they burp it back up. So if you see them standing there and they're not eating grass and they're just chewing, they're chewing the cud. They're vomiting up the grass that they ate earlier, and they're chewing it again and again and again. When they do that, all the bacteria and stuff that is breaking down it gets air, and then it's able to digest it more and more and more. And this is what we're supposed to be like. Chewing the cud, y'all. Chewing on this bread of life over and over and over again, because we want to extract all the life, all the nutrients, all of the vitality from this so that we can live. Because there's a kingdom of death that is pervasive, radically intelligent, and super well funded, who is here to consume your soul and devour your body and ravage your spirit. And it is insatiable. It is insatiable. But you know what? The Father set inside us an insatiable need to know Him. And that doesn't just mean like I know who He is. It means a relationship. Every time if you read the scripture and you come across the word and Abraham knew someone, it's a relationship. He says, I want my people to know me. I want you to know me. We are supposed to know Yeshua, our Messiah. We are supposed to have this relationship with Him that's intimate and connected. And the way we get that is by chewing the cud. And so this book in Hebrews goes through and chews the cud of a lot of stories that you guys probably have heard, but not from this perspective. All right, if you want to go to verse 23, it says, by belief, Moshe, having been born, was hidden 3 months by his parents, because they saw he was a comely child, and were not afraid of the sovereign's command. Like, you see, they do not fear a king. Like, this is the king of all the land, and they don't fear his commands, his laws, his edicts, his mandates. They don't fear that, but you know what they do have reverence for? Yahweh, Yahuwah, the creator of the heavens and earth. They know Him. They've heard the stories of the forefathers, the patriarchs. They know their testimonies. And because of that, when the great commands came down to murder your own children, they knew better. They knew better, and they knew that was forbidden. And so instead they made a choice. It says, by belief, Moshe, having become great, refused to be called the son of the daughter of Pharaoh, choosing rather to be afflicted with the people of Elohim than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a time. This is the hallmark verses that should get our minds chewing on an idea and a concept. That there's a temporary pleasure that you can get by connecting yourself to the world, by participating in the dragon system, but it will be fleeting. It will not last. It will not satisfy you. And when you lay down to sleep at night, you will notice that it comes and steals these things that you find to be precious. My family had lived our lives in a normal urban neighborhood, which are brutal sometimes. Like, I never could not stop thinking about people looking in my windows. Like, all my windows were aligned exactly with my neighbor's windows, and that just bothered me. Like, I'm innately curious. You know, I mean, you leave a window open, I'm like, what's your home patterns like? When do you get home? When do you eat? I just like that, I'm sorry. There's no way I'm not going to do that if I live next to the street to you. Don't take it personally, I do it to everything. It never stops, right? I had this desire to live somewhere that people just couldn't always look in my windows, right? So I was always drawing the blinds, right? I was like living almost continually paranoid. Like, they can see my windows. Turn off the lights. It's brighter outside and darker inside. You know how this works, honey, right? If it's darker outside and it's brighter inside, they can all see everything that's happening in here all the time. It was never stopping. I didn't have like rest in those neighborhoods. So 3 years ago, my wife and I sold our house and we moved into an RV. And that's literally the first time I came to Speak and Take on the World, 2019. And you know what? 2018, I don't know, borderline delirious. 2018, okay? We came here in a borrowed RV, 4 cats, a baby. It was crazy stinky. It was so hot. I was like vomiting seizures in the campground zone when my black tank spilled all over me, and I was like, this is horrible! My worst fears! I hate heat and I hate feces, and I was in all of them in Ohio. I know you guys, some of y'all live here, but this place is rough, especially when you add poop to the mix. And I was covered in poop, and I was, oh my gosh, exhausted. I had published this book, and I had ordered all the copies, and they got here 2 days after the conference ended. And so I had one book at my table. My table was completely empty except for this book. And I'd hand it to people and be like, here, I wrote that. I poured all my life into that. Everything I ever got is in there. And I'm just crying, hysterical. We just moved, super life stressor, into my friend's basement. Craziness. And I've got 4 cats in an RV and a baby, and I just published a book that nobody can buy, and they're all just standing there staring at it. And they're like, can I buy this? I'm like, no, you have to give it back right now. Give that right back. And so I had these like thumb drafts that I would give them. I was like, here's a copy of the book. None of them worked, I'm so sorry. So terrible. Anyways, this is how life goes, right? But we ended up buying an RV that was a little bigger than the one we tried out and sampled before that. And we moved full-time onto the road. Oh, let's see, we got an RV in here somewhere. We lived quite a ridiculous life. Anyways, for the first year we traveled around and lived in parking lots, like at Walmarts. Stupid. Don't do that. You can do it if you're traveling occasionally. I don't recommend living in Walmart parking lots. It's brutal. It's savage. You got 18-wheelers that park next to you and kids that do donuts right next to you because they know you're sleeping in there. And they're just mean like that. Anyways, we figured out that you could actually go to farms. Here's a little bit of the RV life. You could go to people's farms because farmers always need migrant laborers. You can become a migrant laborer immediately. Like, farms grow food that comes in ridiculous waves. They work for months. This is the onion in the strawberry field where I went hunting that lion. This is us planting 10,000 onions. Sorry, 10,000 strawberries. Amidst we planted 40,000 onions. There's a 4-to-1 ratio with onions and strawberries. This is me and 3 dudes. This guy, James, he planted like 90% of those. I'm not even kidding. One dude has touched more onions than I'm even comfortable starting to describe to you guys. Because after these things grew, what do you think he did? Harvested those things and washed them and packaged them up in little rubber band bunches and then fed them to people. You could smell this man from a good distance. You knew he was coming, you know what I mean? And so I finally asked him, what was the lesson you learned about onions? Like, there's lessons you guys have no idea you don't know because you've never done the same thing 500,000 times. Like, I became a vine dresser on that farm. I didn't even like tomatoes. It's a vine dresser, someone that dresses tomato vines with these. I began to prune these tomato vines, okay? I didn't like tomatoes. I thought they tasted like cardboard sawdust. They were just garbage. I was like, please don't even make me eat them. And then I get down to Florida because I'm tired of living in parking lots, and this guy's like, here, you can park under this beautiful bamboo tree. Oh, this is bamboo. And then I'm like, yay, this idyllic like Garden of Eden. And he's like, you're gonna work in my greenhouses. I'm like, in Florida? It's so hot in Florida. Who's been to Florida in the summer? Who's been in a greenhouse? Who's been in a greenhouse in the heat of the day? All these people are sweating even thinking about it, right? I hated heat. Remember the whole Ohio vomiting, peeing, yeah, not good. Anyways, so he gives me these, and he's like, he didn't give me these. I ended up buying these because I'm way more efficient. But he's showing me, all right, this is tomatoes. You prune these leaves off of them as they grow up and get taller. Because they can grow 21 inches a week in that sunlight, in the ideal growing conditions. A tomato plant can grow 20 inches or more a week, every week, indefinitely, if you give it the ideal conditions. Forever. Like forever. They've got tomato vines that are decades old. Decades old. These tomatoes are amazing. But this farmer had a motto on his farm. His name was Gavin. And he had this motto on his farm that he said he had this dream that people could taste his food and see that God was good. That was his dream. Like this like archetyped idea in his head when he started. He wanted people to take a bite of real food and know the Creator was good. And so he planted and cultivated hundreds of varieties of different kinds of plants to find the best tasting stuff that he could grow. And I had never even heard of that I've been to farmers markets and stuff and been like, yeah, there's these like organic gardeners. I love organic food. My wife and I came to this big awakening about genetically engineered food and raw spring water and all this stuff for the past few years. But I had no idea there's this whole other level of like gardening and farming where your whole entire design is to be exquisite, excellent, kadosh, set apart and distinct from every other competitor out there. And you know what? Because of that, this man's tomatoes are the best tomatoes ever. Literal kings come to get this guy's tomatoes. Like, I'm not exaggerating. It's called Naples, one of the areas where the Billionaires Club goes in the winter. Like, kings of the earth go there, and they want these tomatoes. This is my wife following after the fruits of my labor and harvesting them. She's like 2 months out from giving birth to Jubilee, that one. And she's working in a greenhouse, dragging around a baby, sweating her face off like crazy too, and harvesting after me. It was exhausting. It was brutal. And I learned lessons there that I could never learn anywhere else in the world.
This is like my favorite moment of the day. Not always. Sometimes it's not so good because you're really tired at this point. But when most people are siestaing, I'm eating citrusing. So when you work with tomatoes all day, like all day, every day, which is what I do, that's what I've been working on. And you see where that wonderful delineation of foliage is? I still have all that to go. I hear somebody else.
Okay.
Maybe somebody will come and help me. Sometimes it happens. But until then, the best way to eat an orange is like a 7-year-old does. The children on the farm know what's up. The best way to eat an orange is to bite that skin off of it and then just squeeze it. It's literal orange juice on demand. And it's like the best orange you've ever had. I don't know if you've ever had an orange this good. In December. In Florida. It's a good day to be a tomato farmer in Florida.
Like, there are lessons that we cannot learn when we are separated from this. And there's lessons that we cannot learn if we are separated from that creation. But there's a system that was designed to keep you from coming to know Him. To keep you from the dangerous things. They want us to live in safety. They want us to keep safe. And that's foolishness. I hate that. So does the Father. You find me one verse where He tells you to be safe. Sit down. I tell dogs to sit. Do you ever think about that? I was in the United States Army. They made us wear dog tags because I was literally their dog. They let me loose to go hunt humans. That's what I did for them. I hunted human beings for them because I was a good dog. You ever think about that? That's strategic. You know what? Our Father never calls us dogs. But you know what He always calls us? Children. There's never the adults of Israel. Like, not one passage where it's like, you adults, you finally grew up. He's like, not one time does He call any of you adults. Because if you think about it, that we're supposed to live at least 1,000 years, seriously, we're children. Like, 1,000 years. And a 10-year-old, 6-year-old, that's a child for certain. And if we were supposed to live that way, like when you consider Noah at 500 years old, he's like barely even getting into it. He's like getting limber and starting off life and finally getting after it when he's building the ark. We don't even think like that. I can never learn the amount that they did in their first 50 years of life. These guys are like learning that in such a short time frame of their life. He calls us children. And He says, if you do not have the hearts of a child, you cannot enter His kingdom. Like, I am obsessed with trying to see these children, these younger generation, being won to His ways. Like, I want to pour everything in me to see them have an example of something that's different. And not stupid, different. We are supposed to be people that the world recognizes that we are princes of Elohim. It said when Abraham wanted to go get a gravesite for his wife after she died, and he went to the people of Canaan, total pagan Canaanites, like the definition of Canaanites, that they recognized him as a prince of Elohim. Why? Why? Go to Deuteronomy. Let's find out why. What makes his people different? Deuteronomy 10. guys ever want to know where the Word? Yeshua says that he was the Word that came down from heaven, the bread of life. The Word there is literally Debarim. Debarim. That's literally what he is. He is these words. When he fought the dragon, he personally fought with these words. Debarim. Deuteronomy. He fought with these words. This is the little sword that came out of our master's mouth when he fought the dragon. In person. There's not a lot of us who have personally fought the dragon. But when he did, these were the words that came out of his mouth. It's important that maybe those should be the hallmark verses of our life. These should be the things that we sharpen our edges of our swords on continually. I have a whole entire series called The Way of the Blade. And I am fanatically excited to teach people about knives and swords and machetes and all kinds of stuff like that. And a big portion of it is how to sharpen. How to sharpen your sword. Because if you use it, you're going to damage it. And you need to correct it by filing it on something harder than it is. I have ones that are made of aluminum oxide, which is like sapphires. And I use those to finally set the edge of this. When you learn these words, when you put them into your body and you chew that cud, you're sharpening your sword. Because you're bringing your flesh against the sharpest and most ferocious thing on the face of the earth. Deuteronomy 10. And at that time, Yahuwah said to me, hew for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first. By the way, these are sapphires. If you don't know about that, we should talk about it. Exodus 24:10. Sapphires for 10 commandments. The 10 commandments were written on sapphires. The Bible tells you this. Super exciting. Anyways. Like the first, and come up to me on the mountain, and you shall make yourself an ark of wood. Then I write on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke, and you shall put them in the ark. So I made an ark of acacia wood, hewed 2 tablets of stone like the first, and went up the mountain with the 2 tablets in my hand. And he wrote on the tablets, according to the first writing, the 10 words, which Yahuwah had spoken to you in the mountain from the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly. Then Yahuwah gave them to me. And I turned and came down from the mountain and put the tablets in the ark which I had made. And they are there as Yahuwah commanded me. Now the children of Israel departed from the wells of Benaim, Yakad to Mosherah. And Aaron died there, and he was buried there. And Eleazar his son became Kohen in his place. From there they departed to Gugadah, and from Gugadah to Yadbah, a land of rivers of water. And at that time Yahuwah separated the tribe of Levi to bear the ark of the covenant to Yahuwah, to stand before Yahuwah, to serve him, and to Barak, bless, in his name to this day. Therefore Levi has no portion, nor inheritance with his brothers. Yahuwah is his inheritance, as Yahuwah your Elohim promised him. And I stayed in the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, and Yahuwah heard me at that time, and chose not to destroy you. And Yahuwah said to me, arise and go before the people to depart, and let them go in and possess the lands which I swore to their fathers to give them. And now, Israel, what is Yahuwah, your Elohim, asking of you? The greatest question of all time. What is required of us? This is the most important thing we could ever come to find out. Question number 1 that should be on all of your minds from the day you wake up to the day you are sleeping for eternity is this right here. What does he require of us? Because if you go get a job, you're going to be given requirements. Guaranteed everybody knows this. Fundamental for life. If I'm supposed to accomplish a task, I need to know what's required of me. And he's no different. This is what he requires of us. To revere Yahuwah your Elohim, to walk in all his ways, and to love him. To serve Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being. To guard the commands of Yahuwah and his laws which I command you today for your good. See the Shemaim, the heavens, and the Shemaim of Shemaim belong to Yahuwah your Elohim, also the earth and all that is in it. Yahuwah delighted only in your fathers to love them, and he chose their seed after them, you above all people as it is today. And you shall circumcise the foreskins of your hearts, and harden your neck no more. For Yahuwah your Elohim is Elohim of mighty ones, and Adonai of masters, the great El, mighty and awesome, Gibor, right there. who shows no partiality, nor takes up bribe. He executes right ruling for the fatherless and the widow, and loves his stranger, giving him food and a garment. And you shall love the stranger, for you are strangers in the land of Mitzrayim. Abraham was known as a prince of Elohim, because when strangers and sojourners passed through his way, he fed them, he clothed them, he gave them the bread of life. And everybody knew, that man cares for the sojourner. He was the sojourner. He was the one without a home. I've been without a home for years. I've lived on other people's farms. As beautiful as this is, it's not my place. And it's different when you walk out your door and people are outside harvesting tomatoes and they're doing all this stuff and you don't really get your rest. In Atlanta, where I met this mighty man over here, I screamed for land. I screamed for land because I was living on 1 acre with 12 goats and 9 other people. Like, it was crowded, y'all. Like, super crowded. People were living there that were homeless, witches, crazy situations, and there was a devoted family that had special needs children, chickens coming out our ears, bamboo growing all over the place, mulch and goat poop everywhere, and my gigantic RV parked in the driveway. Like, I could spit on their house. I didn't, but I could. It was like, when their windows were open, I could hear everything that was going on. When my windows are all closed, everybody can hear everything that's going on because it's made of like dust, right? There was no privacy. And I had this insatiable need to scream sometimes, like, just gonna put it out there. Sometimes I feel like screaming, really intensely screaming, because there's been some stuff that happened in my life that I talk about in here that makes me just want to stink and scream and go do something crazy. So, the Father gave me these and sent me into greenhouses where I could scream and nobody could hear me. True story. They've got these crazy fans on in there all the time. Nobody can hear you screaming until I finally learned one thing. All the children had been hearing me scream all season long. And they were always like, he goes in there and he cries. We've heard it. We've heard it. So this second year, I went back down there for more, right? And I was screaming and crying, and I was like singing this song, Psalm 34. It's like, taste and see that the Lord is good. How blessed is He. Like, I was singing this song because I was so not happy, right? I'm just like, I'm gonna sing it anyways, even though I don't feel it. Kind of moment in my life. And I was so hot, but I've been jumping in this river, and I knew it was good for me, but I was so angry. Like, I had so much unresolved anger, right? And I used to think the only way I could get it out was with a blade. And so I'm cutting these tomatoes like you don't even know, right? You don't even know! Cutting these tomatoes and singing the song. And then like 9 children come into the greenhouse. And children are not allowed in the greenhouse. Like, there's some rules. Like, this worth like $50,000 comes out of this greenhouse, right? I love children, but y'all, some of you can't be trusted with a pair of these next to a plant that's gonna make $400, you know what I mean? We can teach you, but you must show that you can be trusted before you're given a sharpened tool. So, I'm in there crying, the children come running in, and they're like, how can we help? I was like, wow. You wanna help me sweep out the aisles? They're all like, yeah. Are you all right? I'm like, no. And I'm just crying, right? And they grab brooms and they're pushing out the aisles for me. They're pushing out the aisles for me. And that's the best thing ever. If you don't have children who have ever asked you, Daddy, can I help? You can't even comprehend what that feels like. Like when my daughter asked me, Daddy, can I help you? Like, I was crying on my face before this conference. I've never been more sick and exhausted than on my way here. But I was crying on my face, and I was crying so hard, my nose was bleeding, and I was crying in anguish. And Naomi, my daughter, she comes in there and she said, Daddy, can I help? And I don't know how she can help me right then. And she comes over with a tissue because I couldn't speak. And that's all she did. And she left and came back later and she said, Daddy, I got Jubilee outside and she's playing, she's happy. And I need that. Our children are supposed to be our helpers. In the beginning, we pour out to them in ways they don't know. My daughter doesn't know anything about this man. She doesn't know anything about this. She doesn't know that whole family. We left everything and everybody behind. She doesn't even know I have parents. Not a reality to her. She is kadosh from that world. She's the first generation that doesn't have any of that on her. But I'm paying the price.
that she doesn't understand. And I'm doing my darndest to keep it that way, but it leaks. And it's brutal, and it's exhausting. But there comes a day where our children start to look at us and say, how can I help? How can I serve you? And it is the greatest joy when your children look at you and say, what's required of me?
Daily, I got pink, and I got orange, and purple, and white. I got purple,
What do you got there?
I got purple, and yellow, yellowish, the pink, this.
Nice.
Come on, Sissy.
Rose of Sharon. Decadent. Delicious. Eat it.
There's no greater satisfaction the Father has than when we look at Him and we say, tell me what I gotta do to serve you. How can I help you? You've given me everything I have. You love me so much. You created the skies above us to be a witness for us for eternity. He set these things as a perfect reminder. I am here. The sun rose today. It is shining through this window now, and it will shine again tomorrow as sure as ever things have ever taken place in the history of the world. That sun will rise tomorrow. He loves us enough to have perfect reminders waiting for us. The moon shining in its brilliance. I hope every one of you goes outside tonight around dusk and watch that moon rise and marvel at our Creator, who created such a beautiful witness in the sky to shine on us and give us light in the night. What a good dad. Any of you ever leave a light on for your children? Any of you ever turn a little night light on for your children? Because there's something inherent about the darkness that can be scary. And you guys have it in you too. You just have grown up in a world where you flip on a switch and all that feeling goes away. But for eternities before us, people didn't have that. People didn't have that. They had to kindle a flame. And the job of the Levites was to keep a light burning, day and night, forever. Forever. And it was supposed to come from this crushing of the olives, the crushing of them, to get that drops of oil out of them. On this book, you see this hand grabbing and snatching this stick from the flames. It's an olive tree. And it's got 3 olives on it, because that's what my family was. I was calling out to the mighty hand of the Creator. If you don't know anything about Hebrew, this is just a quick thing. This is called the J.A.S.O.N. It's the working hand of the Creator, the mighty hand of our Creator. He said, by a strong hand I drew you out of Mitzrayim. I drew you out of there with my mighty hand. If you don't know about the hand of the Creator, if you don't know about Yeshua, the mighty one who rescued us and ransomed us, you can come to know Him. He has not hidden Himself. He was hidden and revealed to the people when He came the first time. But I assure you, He will reveal Himself to you if you diligently seek Him. He wants you to know Him. He needed to show me His mighty hand of rescuing us. And you know what He did with those olives? He crushed them. He crushed them. Because there are things that are in me that can never come out unless I'm crushed. And there's things in you guys that can never come out unless you're crushed. Men, we were designed to work by the sweat of our faces. Adam gets this horrible curse brought on the whole earth. And Yahweh says to him, by the sweat of your face, you will eat bread. And if you avoid the sweat of your face, men, you are avoiding the weapon you have against the curse. You have a great and mighty, powerful way of fighting against the enemy that comes from diligently, ferociously working your face off. Like working hard. I am obsessed with trying to get people to become farmers. Like, you don't have to look like this guy in the woods or this guy here, or my wife and I harvesting and carrying chickens and stuff like that. But like, let me tell you, there is a way of farming that is beautiful. Where farms follow the contours of the land and they keep the water on the land, because water is life. You shouldn't create drainage ditches to just drain the water off your fields. Everything needs water to live. And you need water to live, but so do these plants. This is a little diagram of plants in this space that's under the ground. 95% of all living things
are under the ground. They're in this space. The rhizome is what they call this. And down in here, you have this crazy war going on all the time. There's the roots coming down, like you see this beautiful tree. Oh, so pretty. Everybody's like, wow, look at these trees. This is a mirror of what's going on under the ground. Like if you look at that forest, that tells you about the roots that are going on underneath. So this is basically what it looks like below the ground. These roots down here are penetrating into the soil. And as they do that, bacteria. Oh, bacteria. Make sure you use antibiotics, y'all, because bacteria, no, you need bacteria to live. You need it. In your gut, they call it E. coli. It's there all the time. But then they're like, sometimes it'll make you super sick. You're like, how? No. So it's what's making you sick. Bacteria is not what's making you sick. Eating death definitely makes you sick. Don't eat that. Should be rule number 1. If you learn foraging, there's a lot of things they tell you about. Not eating stuff that makes you sick. But we eat it every day. And we're like, oh, it's fine. They sold it at the store. To kill you. Not right away, because that'd be too obvious. Just to kill you slowly, so then you buy our drugs and we keep you barely alive while we bleed you of all your money. It's a ridiculous rule. Anyways, bacteria. Roots have these incredible connection system, like a giant circulatory system that goes up into the leaves. The leaves are collecting the sunlight, like from over here. That's just risky. Like the sunlight right here, it's collecting it and converting it into sugars, right? And then what it's doing is dumping that down into the soil. 100% of it, they could use it all. They don't. 80% of all the sugar they make goes into the soil. Because they know they gotta feed these bacteria. If they feed the bacteria will feed them. So they feed the bacteria, which feeds the mycorrhizum, feeds the fungi, and it creates this living system where each of these digest different portions of the things that the other things can't digest. And they feed it to each other. And it provides things like lipids and oils, which the plant then reabsorbs through the roots that it coats its leaves with to protect itself from the sun, from bugs, from pests. Like, plants would not have any disease. None. Pests would never eat it. They would never get blight. They would never get mold if you took care of the soil. Like, if you nourish the soil, you can heal the plant. Which is why I'm fanatical about you guys nourishing the soil of your heart. Because if you nourish it with this, if you chew the cud of this, it will sustain your soul and give you life. When this takes place, you guys, and you start to keep the water on the land, what it allows, like bacteria, this stuff is like made of water. So much so that when the bacteria, the root here, this tip, as it's expanding and going down into it, it has these little tiny openings at the very end of it. And the bacteria tries to get inside the root. They're like, I'm gonna be inside there! And as they try to go for it, a bunch of them die. Because the plant root, it exudes a bunch of enzymes to try to break them down. When it does that, it digests that bacteria by water. It gets all the water out of these bacteria and it uses them. But like 20% of those bacteria make it all the way through the root. And you know what they do? They stimulate the root to put out hairs. Like, you ever seen those hairs? Did anybody ever plant a seed in a bag so you could see the roots grow out? It's like all the experience they give you on gardening at school. They're like, isn't that cool? Throw it out, okay? Well, we do that thing. Like, if you guys just planted every apple seed that you had from now on, every one of them, all of them, we could have thousands of new varieties of apples that are disease resistant, drought resistant, pest resistant, in all kinds of climates all over this earth. If you just didn't throw out the seeds, they got cyanide in them. No, that's great. You need cyanide. I know. Super unpopular topic, but it's literally an anti-cancer. Just saying. Anyways, you can plant all the seeds of everything you have. Just go outside and shove it in the ground. If it makes it, awesome. It's called sheer, total, utter neglect. This guy named Sheppard, who I'm like absolutely in love with, because he's the one who introduced me to this whole other system of farming, where you're allowing the plants and the animals to work together instead of this. This is the version we have that makes that pond out there, guys. Don't swim in it. I'm like crazy into swimming. Don't swim in that thing. It's got so much glyphosate and nitrogen and phosphorus in it that it'll make you vomit and have diarrhea. Like the bad kind of diarrhea, we're not getting the toilet bowl diarrhea. Okay? That's because there's toxins in there that tell you something, right? That's because of this all around us. Do you guys see those endless fields of soybean and corn as you're coming in here? That's the land of nightmares. When you see that, that should make your soul weep, and you should cry out. Like, how many of you heard your children screaming, and you went running to them? Like, it's like built into us, right? When daddy, like, hears the sound of his children screaming, what does he do? I'm coming. Dad could be busy.
Dads are always busy. Moms are always busy. You're crazy moms. I love y'all. Y'all savage level, exhausted, weary. I can't even believe you guys that bring children to these things. You are champions. Champions. Like, seriously? I know there's some older people here who did that with their children. Thank you guys for the sacrifice that it takes to bring your children here. There's nursing moms here and who have given their lives away to their babies. That's the way it's supposed to be. Giving the best years of your life away. That's a mercy. And your children someday might turn to you and thank you. They may turn to you and say, how can I help you? If we raise them up in his ways, if we teach them to regard his instructions, we will diligently impress these words on them. They will turn to us and say, how can I help you? They absolutely will do it, and it will feed that system back. This is a system that is designed to work in harmony. These animals are chewing this, eating it up, they're peeing and pooping. 35 gallons of urine a day. 35 gallons a day of pee. You know what bacteria loves more than anything ever? Pee. See, so I've been talking to some folks out there, and they're like, this guy's talking about pee and poop a lot. You betcha, because you weren't supposed to poop in your drinking water. You really weren't. You weren't supposed to pee in it either. Like, read the book. It really says don't do that. This is where you're supposed to pee and poop. Truly, it's made for it. When these animals poop and pee and all this, they stomp down all this grass, they create like this mat that will turn into carbon, and earthworms, and all these little bugs and spiders and stuff, they all live inside. If you bring chickens in after 3 days after this, all those cow pies and that poop, all these flies laid their larvae in it, right? And then the chickens come in 3 days later, and they eat all those maggots out of it, and they spread out those cow pies. So you're not stepping in those ridiculous cow pies, right? And it fertilizes your land, right? This is how you build pasture. Incredible pasture. This is also how you build incredible pasture under trees. Plants don't always have to live in perfect sunny environments. You can have 40 to 60% shade and grass is growing amazing. And then these trees are getting all that poop and pee that they always wanted. Right? This is called Silvopasture. Check it out. Greatest things I've ever discovered in the history of awesomeness in the last 2 years. This is ways of capturing the water along the contours of the land so that the water doesn't just flood away, but it stays and it saturates and it penetrates the soil, which is what this word is supposed to do in our lives. This word is made to sink into our soil. Go to Deuteronomy 6. All right, we're about to wrap this up. And this is the command, the laws, and right rulings which Yahweh your Elohim has commanded you, to teach you to do in the land which you are passing over to possess, so that you revere Yahweh your Elohim, to guard all his laws and his commands which I command you and your son and your grandson all the days of your life, and that your days be prolonged. And you shall hear, O Israel, and shall guard to do it, that it might be well with you, and that you increase greatly, as Yahweh Elohim of your fathers has spoken to you, a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them as frontlets between your eyes, and write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. This is what he longs for us to do. I wish I had had the same level of tenacity to go hunt that lion as I would to go hunt in his word. I have dreamed of that and made it an idol my whole life. Full disclosure, super an idol in my life. Like, I wanted to be Benaiah so bad. Like the ultimate lion hunter. He also fought 2 lion-faced men of Moab hybrids that literally had lion heads. That it said one of them was equal to 1,000 humans. Like, literally, a couple of them came over to David's army. He immediately made them commanders of thousands. Immediately. 2 of them. And they were so powerful
that Benaiah, when he fought them, he's the only one we have any documented cases that anybody killed one of these things. He's the only one that did it. He was a lion hunter. I have a video called How to Hunt Lions, where I talk about this. Because that seems like a specialized job. But you know what? The adversary, the devil, that dragon of old, who was roaring around like a roaring lion, there is a lion, the real lion, who when he roars, the earth shakes. And every eye is going to see him. Every knee is going to bow before him. Every tongue is going to confess. When the mighty one of Israel comes, the foundations of the earth are going to tremble. No one will be able to hide from him. And he is going to reveal himself to us. And I want to be there. I want to be there. I want my children to be there. I want your children to be there. I hope you guys are willing to give everything up in this world that is the temporary pleasures, the creature comforts, so that you can have the kingdom. We need the kingdom. We don't need anything this world has to offer. We don't need any of it. If you have food and water and clothing, let us be content, satisfied. I ate this food and was satisfied when I ate the fruit of my labors. I sat down in peace. I was so tired. Never been that level tired in my life. I was up from 3 in the morning till 6 in the morning recording the audio of this book on that farm. And then, you know what I did? Had children wake up. That's why if it sounds like I'm whispering through the whole book, it's not dramatic. I'm just in a tiny RV and babies are sleeping. Like, I'm not really trying to be dramatic. I just had to be really quiet. I was on that farm, getting ridiculously skinny and sweating every drop of my life away into these tomatoes. And I am happier and more satisfied because I knew when I laid my head down to sleep, my Elohim was watching over me, and that I had served my family. I had honored them, and I had brought forth the fruit of the earth, and I had got to eat my bread in satisfaction. Men, I want you to know what that feels like. I want you to know what it feels like to pour your sweat into the earth and get to see the fruit of your labor when your children are with you. Not somewhere else, not in somebody else's schools of indoctrination. Don't worry about it. Let those babies sing their songs, man. They got praises in their lips. Your children are made to be with you. Don't give them over to monsters. You guard your children. They are your precious gift. He entrusted each and every one of you. You give up everything in the world for them to know him. You give up everything you need to for them to be with the ones who love them and will show them the Creator's ways. Thank you guys for taking the time to be here.